We are live. Welcome everyone to NFA Live on this most auspicious of days, this historic day when Bitcoin has finally broken through that $100,000 barrier. We all knew it was coming, but we couldn't be sure when. We've had an early Christmas present delivered to us. Sentiment is going through the roof, and of course, this is the ideal time to start talking through it all with two of the finest minds in crypto. Mr. Benjamin Cowan, welcome, Ben.
Happy to be here. Yeah, it was a pretty exciting event.
It certainly was. And of course, Mr. Rob Wolf. Rob, good to see you.
Good to be here, especially on a 100K day. Pretty monumental. Amazing.
Yeah. A glorious day. A glorious day. So just a quick bit of housekeeping to everyone watching. If you don't already follow Ben and Rob, then you can find links to their pages below. And I highly suggest that you do, because they both have excellent crypto alpha, excellent information, and are two of the finest minds in this space. There's so much to talk about today. Fortunately, I do know where to start, because we're going to talk about 100K Bitcoin. We also have to address the elephant in the room, which is that large body of water behind you, Rob. Because I'm seeing quite a few people in the comments talking about whether you're going to enter that at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I could. I just need I need better graphics. So I talked to Fiverr. And I said, hey, gents, I need an update on this. If you could rush that. And they're like, we're really busy right now. So, give us a couple of days. I'm like, well, it's 100K today. So I don't know how I'm going to jump into this green screen. I'll give it I could, but it just does not working for me. I'm sorry.
Oh, well, it looks good. It looks good. So yeah, let's kick off. Let's talk about 100K, because I was going to talk about the fact that the Altcoin Season Index just hit a 2-year high, and I was going to ask you guys if we're kind of now in full-blown alt season, or whether it was a false start. But we need to sort of talk more about Bitcoin, about Bitcoin breaking 100K. What do we think got us to this point, and where next? And of course, the big question is, what does it mean for Bitcoin dominance, which until recently had been in something of a downtrend? That said, obviously after being in a very long-term uptrend. But Ben, do you want to start us off with this, seeing as you're the Bitcoin dominance expert as well? Just what are your thoughts on getting to 100K and where now?
Yeah, no, it's pretty exciting. I think you're right. No one knew exactly when 100K would happen. There's a lot of metrics that suggested it could happen by the end of 2024, but there's also a lot of times where things suggest things will happen and then they don't actually happen when you think. Just like a lot of people thought it was going to happen in 2021, and then it eluded us. So it's pretty exciting event. Again, it sort of just justifies Bitcoin and sort of silences the haters, right? As far as alt season and Bitcoin dominance, it's really hard to say. I do think I think at this point Bitcoin dominance is more of like an academic exercise rather than like an investing strategy. I think for the longest time it was, stick with Bitcoin till 60% dominance, then diversify a little bit after 60%. Obviously, I know you guys diversified well before 60%, but that was my strategy.
Yeah.
And I had my reasons for it. And of course, some altcoins have done pretty well since then. And dominance took a huge, it dropped a ton. It dropped from like 60 to 61%. I think it hit 61, and it went all the way down to 54. So you can see just how quickly it can drop when it does start to drop. So that is at least a glimmer of what an alt season would look like, right? Where it's just dropping day in and day out, and it goes on for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. So I guess the question is are we in it? I think at the very least, it was a mini one at the very least. I don't think you can go from 61% dominance to 54% dominance in 2 weeks while alts are going up on their Bitcoin pairs and their USD pairs and not call it alt season. But at the same time, there's a difference between sort of like a mini one and one that is lasting for months, right? Kind of like what we saw in 2021. So look, I don't know exactly if it's going to stall out here, or, you could see Bitcoin dominance go back up. The one thing that people should keep in mind is in 2020, actually. We had a very similar move. Bitcoin dominance rallied up, put in a top in November. It then dropped in November, and then it went back up in December. So I think people should be open-minded for dominance to go back up in the short term, but I don't know if it's going to make a new high or not in the short term, but it could at least bounce. And the reason why it often bounces when Bitcoin breaks out to like above 100K is now we're like, all right, well, now where's Bitcoin going to go? Now that it's above 100K, what's next? And what you often see is when Bitcoin moves, the altcoin market doesn't move, right? It just kind of sits still and it watches Bitcoin. So I guess that's the thing to think about. If Bitcoin repeats what happened in 2020 and it basically just kind of stays where it is for maybe another week or so, and then starts to really move up mid to late December, then there's a good chance that dominance would go back up. And again, I mean, the reason, and not necessarily to a new high, but the reason is just because when Bitcoin moves, everything else just kind of watches. So I think that's where we are right now. And the good thing about it, though, when you have Bitcoin dominance going back up in the short term, is that it's going up for the right reasons, right? It's not going up because Bitcoin's dropping and the altcoin market is dropping a lot worse, right? It's going up. Altcoins are basically just staying still and Bitcoin's moving. So I don't think it's been that difficult for people to watch the bounce by Bitcoin dominance in the short term. I would keep an eye on it. My base case at this point is that dominance drops in 2025. But I gotta be honest. I mean, and that's my base case. But I'm having to fight the we're seeing all these meme coin rug pulls the last couple of days that are getting pretty televised, and I'm just like, I'm like, oh man, does dominance need to go higher? I don't know, but probably base case is that it goes down in 2025, but we'll see.
Yeah, meme coin rug pulls still happening. We learned nothing. It would no would appear to be the answer to that. The short answer. Rob, can I? Sorry, what was that?
No, I was just saying, too many people are just buying memes, and we can't get away from it. So that Hawk Tua girl is one of them. We were talking about that earlier.
Yeah. I mean, folks, have you not got the memo? Memes are dead. We're moving on now. We're moving away from that. The meme coin supercycle is invalidated, supposedly. Rob, I want to ask you though, in terms of what we've seen with Bitcoin and the fact that it's now crossed this crucial psychological threshold, do you think, given what you've seen in previous cycles and given what we know of how people tend to look at this sort of thing, are we now at the stage where people who've been on the sidelines and are suddenly aware of it again go, what, Bitcoin 100K? This is wild. I've got to get in on this. Or is it going to be a case perhaps of, wow, that is too much. That is too expensive. I've missed that boat. But what about all these other interesting cryptocurrencies? I see there's another one here that's way, way cheaper and also has a spot ETF. Which direction do you think we could go? Or can we go in sort of both directions at once?
I mean, I think you're going to see big money get into Bitcoin more and more, especially as this, when we talk about the strategic reserve and if this gets pulled off, like we've talked about numerous times, if it does go through and we have the strategic reserve and, US leads the way, then what happens? Everything goes, I think all bets are off at that point. Because when we could see, if you have America come out and say, yeah, we're going to do what the Cynthia Lummis bill proposes, we're going to stockpile 1 million Bitcoin over time, then it's pretty much game over. Then you start to look out for 250,000 Bitcoin and go from there. But but going back to your original question about, altcoins and it's altcoin season and I mean, it looks pretty promising, right? And I did a video about this on Sunday and I said, you really got like 4 months, because if you take a look at the timeframes, usually it's 12 months to 16 months after the Bitcoin halving. We just had one in April 2024. So if you just extrapolate that out, April 2025, you can start to see like some pretty big runs. So I say you got 4 months to do that. I know some people will say, well, Rob, you talked about getting into Bitcoin so much and I missed out on alts. And I'm like, well, maybe you missed out on some like 5 or 8 or 10 or something like that. I mean, I'm sorry that you didn't hit all 10,000 cryptos that collapsed. But I think if you're concerned about like altcoins right now it's time to do what you think is best for you. If you want to take some more risk and you've had it into Bitcoin, you're like, you know what? I think this is going to do better. Give it a shot. Give it a roll. I don't know if I'm going to do that. Me personally, I think I bought a bunch of altcoins beforehand. And now I'm going to start to, as the risk bands go up, then I start to reduce my, not my positions, but my actual buying. Because my bank account, I don't know if you guys are like this, especially the ones that are listening right now, my bank account is anemic. I mean, it looks just so thin. But then I take a look at like Ledger and I take a look at my Tangent wallets. I'm like, wow, this is going pretty good. So, I mean, you've got everybody that's listening, you got 4 months. If we get a Bitcoin strategic reserve, you got longer than that. But at the very minimum, I think you got a lot of time. So I will just say thanks to Ben for laying out the Bitcoin dominance and going, yeah, you may not make these huge 1 million X gains, but if you're going to make some big gains, you can pull that in, start to get into alts later on. And it worked out pretty well instead of going into whatever crazy meme coin that's out there.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Ben was thoroughly vindicated on that Bitcoin call, on that Bitcoin dominance call. I mean, 60%. That was I remember you making that call months ago, Ben, maybe even a year ago. And you were only wrong in the fact that it went to 61. So
May of 2022.
Yeah, 2020. God, was that when you first made it?
2022. Yeah.
No. Sorry, it was May of 2021.
Ah, okay.
It was.
So, so back then is when you called it.
Yeah, because it was when dominance bottomed on its excluding stables. It was when dominance bottomed excluding stables. It didn't bottom until later, but yeah, I think it was. I'll find it, but I think it was May of 2021.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
And here we are, 2024. 2.5. So talk about waiting, you know.
Well, it underlines something important in crypto, isn't it? Which I think a lot of people need to remember. I'm sure most of the people watching are aware of this because I think people, people paying attention now have, but for the most part, been paying attention for a long time. But crypto is a lot of it. A lot of the success is about having a plan and then sticking to it, through thick and thin. And crypto delivers that, I think, more than sort of any other area, because you really do have to have the courage of your convictions when you see things tank by 30% over a couple of days or so.
Oh no, yeah.
But
yeah, I became bullish on it, but I didn't say 60% until May of 2022. So it was 2022.
Good enough.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on from Bitcoin, because one of the things of the last week or so, the last 2 weeks, I guess, really, because we didn't do this last week because of Thanksgiving. I hope you guys had a good one, by the way. But one of the stories of the last couple of weeks has been this sudden explosion in what, if I was being unkind, I would call dino coins. But as I'm a nice diplomatic chap, I'm going to call coins from previous cycles. We've seen we've seen the likes of XRP, ADA, HBAR, Algo, and many, many others go on an absolute tear, and it's really been quite something to behold. So I want to ask you guys what you make of this. What is your thesis on why this has happened? And are there other last cycle or previous cycle cryptos that we're sleeping on? Rob, do you want to take this one first?
Well, I think Ben's going to give us some information on charts and overlays, and I'll just kind of go for the layman. Like when we take a look at all these different dino coins, as Guy called it, which is pretty adequate. If you have to think about, like, first of all, I mean, you hear the rumblings from Trump saying, I'm not going to tax any kind of US based crypto company. And with that, people are like, oh, this is great. That means I can get into the Ripples. I can get into Solanas. I can get into Hedera. I can get all these stuff. And then, so there's that one part. I mean, that's the people that actually are cognizant about capital gains. But the second part is when you go to Coinbase, if you're US based, and if you go to any central exchange, what do you see? You see Bitcoin is number one, and now you're going to see it at 102,000. logically people look at that and go, I can't afford 102,000, even though they can buy $20. We know that. But how many of us have ever explained that, there's 100 million Satoshis into one Bitcoin? Nobody really does that. I don't even do that. But I will tell you this, I'm looking at, I'm looking at Coinbase right now, and I'm seeing it, and I'm like, wow, Ethereum's 3,900, maybe. XRP is $2. I could get into that. And I heard about that. There's these XRP army guys. They're always talking about it. And now it just blasted off like 300% in a month. Well, if it did a 3x, why couldn't it do a 20x? I'll get into that. And then Dogecoin. Oh my God, there's this thing that's going on with the government and Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, and it's part of the US government. So I got to get into Doge. So Doge is a governmental agency, and it's also a coin. This is a win-win. And of course, we all know I'm being facetious. This has nothing to do with that. And then you just go down. Where's my favorite one? This one, Shiba Inu. People have no idea about market cap and circulating supply. And they're like, wow, I can buy Bitcoin for 103,000 or this one for a fraction of a penny. You know where I'm going to go. So like, I look at those two things, and I think people just get into it. And also I think about, well, first I will say congratulations to the XRP army and the people that stuck with it. I actually took a look at it from 2018. I used this DCA tool on this website called Into the Cryptoverse. And I overlaid XRP. If you dollar cost average $100 every week from January 2018 to today, and you actually compare that to Bitcoin, you know that you would be up almost as much as with Bitcoin just by investing into XRP. But you have to buy $100 every week. And that's when Gary Gensler said, I'm going to sue the pants off you, and it's never going to go through. So for everybody who did that and you had a conviction, respect. Hats off to
you. Yeah, they. I think they really do deserve plaudits for that, don't they? Because that has been, like I was saying earlier, crypto puts you through the ringer in that regard, and anyone who's held XRP since 2017 or 2021 will know what the ringer is. They have become the ringer. So yeah, it's an incredible achievement, and it's good to see them rewarded for that tenacity, I guess. Ben, I can see you have a chart ready. Let me just throw that up, and can you talk us through what we're looking at here?
Shoot, look at that.
Yeah, so I think so it kind of goes back to, one of the things I've said before is that like altcoins are oscillators at best, and so I think that's why you're seeing some of those coins that haven't really done something in a long time get those moves, because if you sort of argue that there's sort of an upper bound and a lower bound, whenever they get near the upper bound, they start to then turn back the other way, and then whenever they get to the lower bound, they start to turn back the other way, right? And so with XRP, and this is not the only way alts bottom. Sometimes they don't do this, but this is the sort of the setup that you'd look for. Basically a double bottom under Bitcoin pairs. And oftentimes then you'll see those massive rallies by those, older altcoins. And I mean, Rob's right. If you just DCA'd it for the last several years, you're doing fine. But, for the new people, the point of things like Bitcoin dominance is just stick with Bitcoin until 60% dominance, and then convert, right? And then convert to the altcoins. That way, you don't have to just sit in a bleeding alt for 3 years. You just sit in Bitcoin, wait for it to go, hit its milestone, wait for dominance to get back up to a higher level, then convert to alts. That's how you preserve the Satoshi valuation of your portfolio. So, I mean, no one's hurting now, right? Whether you DCA at XRP or Bitcoin, you're doing fine. But again, I would argue that sticking with Bitcoin from basically 2022 until, a few months ago was a good strategy, and then starting to take on the risk after 60% dominance. Another coin that, saw another move was ADA, right? You look at ADA Bitcoin, and this is what, this is the same idea, right? Alts are oscillators at best. And so you basically just look at how they make these moves. Like, when you're up here, no one ever thinks you're going to go back down here, right? When you're down here, no one ever thinks you're going to go back up, but you can kind of see just how the market sort of ebbs and flows, right? Up here, everyone just laughs at Bitcoin, because what happens is kind of what we're probably going to see happen again is Bitcoin makes a move, right? And it makes an incredible move, and it's already up, like 6x from the bottom or more. So then whenever people really start to come back, which they are starting to, they look and they're like, well, Bitcoin's already up a lot. And they do exactly what Rob said. They go look around, they go to CoinMarketCap, and they try to figure out, what do they buy? Because they don't want to buy Bitcoin. And so what happens is they end up, they don't buy Bitcoin, they buy alts. And then at some point, Bitcoin will top out on its USD pair. And then after that, then you get sort of the big alt season, right? The one where dominance actually goes down, and more durably than just say a couple of weeks. And then everyone piles in. They laugh at Bitcoin, right? They laugh at Bitcoin because they're like, my alt's up 5x in a week. What's Bitcoin doing? It's not doing anything. And then what ends up happening is it then eventually induces the bear market, because all the money's flowing to the altcoins. It's not flowing to Bitcoin. And then Bitcoin starts to go down. People lose all their money watching alts drop 99%, 94%. And then they think that then all the alts will then outperform Bitcoin in the bull market, because when they joined, that's what they saw, right? They only saw altcoins outperform Bitcoin. But remember, as we saw this cycle again, Bitcoin leads the bull market, right? Bitcoin dominance goes up for a while and then eventually tops out, and then the altcoin market runs. So I think that is the reason why you're seeing some of these alts pop. Is just, look, I mean, they've finally gotten close to the range lows. And you can see that there's been a lot of people that were basically waiting for this, basically just waiting idly by, waiting for some of these coins to get significantly devalued on their Bitcoin pairs to then sort of make that attempt to time whatever the bottom is. Now, again, they still have a long way to go to prove anything. I mean, if you look at them on a regular scale, you look at this stuff, and it was kind of like a week ago, someone messaged me on Telegram, like they missed alt season. And I looked at it and I'm like, it wasn't ADA, but it was it was Bitcoin dominance. It was basically when Bitcoin dominance was like back up here at 59%. And they're like, they missed alt season. And I was squinting, I'm like, are you talking about like that red candle? Like that was your alt season? Because again, alt season historically is this, right? Where you get a much larger drop. So, I mean, it's important to have some perspective on the market. But I mean, like, I think Rob said it. I mean, the reason why you're seeing some of these older altcoins start to move is because they have significantly underperformed Bitcoin for years. And people, more and more people are starting to speculate as to whether they've bottomed on their Bitcoin pairs. Now, here's the thing. If Bitcoin continues to go higher for a lot longer, Rob was talking about this earlier, depending on whether you get a strategic reserve could influence exactly how much higher it goes. But, depending on how much higher it goes, there's always a chance that alts go back down again, right, against Bitcoin, and then make their move in 2025. But I don't know exactly, but that's the reason, right? They're oscillators at best. Some of them were very devalued, basically back to where they were in, late 2020 of the last cycle, the late halving year of the last cycle, and they're just making very similar moves.
Yeah.
Is this so, Ben? You're saying that these coins are waking up. But what is causing this? I mean, is this new people coming back? Is this people who maybe who kind of left when everything went down the toilet in 2022? Is this current market participants going, deciding that this is the time, this is the time for past cycle coins? What do you guys think is driving or has driven this rally so far?
Well, I think a lot of the a lot of the coins that have actually done the best over, if you think about what two coins or what type of coins have done the best over the last 2 years, Bitcoin and meme coins, right? Bitcoin and meme coins, those have done the best. And that's why, the whole Bitcoin dominant stuff, a lot of people are like, yeah, like it made so much sense. The people that were mostly invested in, say, sort of like the medium cap alts, like your Polkadots, Avalanche, Cardano, that kind of stuff, XRP, right? Because they just watched them bleed against Bitcoin for years. If you've been in the meme coins, you're like, why is he going on about Bitcoin dominance? My meme coin's up 100x, So I think it's basically just a rotation, perhaps. Maybe it's a rotation to people seeking out a little bit more. I don't know. Maybe people are getting tired of being rugged on meme coins. You know, I don't know. Maybe it's as simple as that. I really don't know. I look at the meme coin market, and I respect how much money has been made. There's also been a lot of money that's been lost, but you know, some of the coins, there's a difference, right? You know, meme coins are these things that kind of pop up each cycle, and most of them end up dying, and then new ones pop up the next cycle. But then you have some coins that stick around from one cycle to another. I tend to prefer the ones that stick around from one cycle to another. But I think maybe it's just that rotation, people looking at it like this coin's been beaten down for so many years, and you know, it's time to make its move.
Yeah, I think you're right to an extent there, Ben. I mean, Rob, it was interesting just earlier because you were looking at Coinbase and looking at all these things that are available, putting yourself in the mind of a retail trader, kind of looking through and going, oh well, this is expensive, but hey, yeah, look, this is really cheap. But I think it underlines a really important point about these last cycle coins, about these dino coins, if you like. These things, not only have they been around for a long, long time, but I think it really underscores the importance of exchange support and availability to the wider market. And I think this is going to be one of the things that you just have to pay attention to this cycle. If you're looking for your coin or token to pump, which exchanges is it on? Is it on Coinbase? Is it on Upbit? You know, does it have, because I mean, one of the things that has undeniably been driving this rally in XRP over the last few days has been the volume coming from South Korea. I mean, they've been going absolutely bananas for it. Maybe because there was talk of, they look like they're abandoning this idea of a 20% crypto tax, and then maybe they were just trying to get away from, just trying to distract themselves from all this martial law stuff that suddenly came out of nowhere. But if your crypto isn't easily accessible to a very large number of people via a centralized exchange, because that is still how the vast majority of people access cryptocurrency, then it is not set up to perform as well as something that is. And I think that's something worth bearing in mind about these last cycle coins, is that they are on most exchanges. They are very, very easily available.
Yeah.
I mean, do you agree with that, Robert? Is that too cynical?
No. I mean, there's that part, but then there's another part that you have to remember that, like when I got in 2017, like people were just kind of figuring out the 4-year cycles. Then in 2021 became more concrete. And now like that's what you hear a lot about, the 4-year cycle. So the people that got screwed over, or they round trip their bags, or they kept their funds in FTX, Voyager, Celsius, BlockFi, or whatever, they're probably coming in here going, you know what? I know what happened last time. And I know where things to go. I know which ones are, like, we'll say Cardano. Cardano was at a $3 all-time high. And now we're looking at $1.26. So maybe for somebody who was here before, like, I know what's going to happen. This is going to run up in 2025, and I'll take some profits, and hopefully that'll work out. But I think, and then of course they'll do that. And what do people usually do when they get natural exuberance? They tell their friends. They tell their family. I just saw somebody, a commenter said, hey, somebody or people in his family, they're aping into XRP even though it just did a 3x. Why is that? It's probably because everybody talks about it like, hey, you want to make some money? This is it. And I think there's that. Then there's just the regular people that go in there and just kind of like, oh, we'll do this. And yeah, like you said, people go to centralized exchanges. And if you're a retail person and trying to do a DEX, God bless you. If you're trying to do that on Ethereum layer 1, have fun with those fees. And that's what layer 2s are for. But again, good luck with that.
Yeah. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how, I think, because us who have been in crypto, we're more comfortable on DEXs. We're not as afraid of the idea of doing this thing directly on chain that other people are. It's not such a mystery to us, but to most people it is. And I think something to watch this cycle is how well DeFi does, because if we can get better front ends for DeFi, if we can get a situation where DeFi is more accessible to more people, then I think that is going to be, again, sort of huge for the overall cryptocurrency market because of all the things you can do in DeFi. And of course, huge for all those DeFi associated coins. And I think, if people are sort of wondering like what might be next to do well, or what should we be keeping an eye on, I think DeFi is a good place to look. I mean, a lot of DeFi associated coins and tokens have already done really, really well. But when you factor in the fact that the incoming US administration is most likely going to make it much easier for DeFi companies to operate in or from the United States, I think that could be a sector that's going to rip like absolute crazy over the next year or so.
I think most of the things that people are going to put their money into, it's going to do pretty well. And then I'm just waiting for everybody to tell me how much of a genius they are in the comment section as 2025 goes on. That's the fun part.
Absolutely. Yes. That's a good rallying call to everyone in the comments. Don't forget, you've got to come and watch these live streams. You've got to come and watch the videos that we put out, and you've got to let us know in those comments just how genius, what a genius you are, and how you were right all along. Yes, because this is the time to do it. This is when 3 years of bear market, you get the payoff, quite literally. So you've got to make sure that you enjoy it. You see, Kitten Power has got the memo. Kitten Power's a genius. There we are. This is what we like to see. More of this, please. More of this. Someone else picked the best coin. So it's good to see. It's good to see people enjoying themselves again. Okay, I just want to. There's a couple of other things I want to talk about before we. By the way, if anyone has any questions in the comments, please do let us know. We'll try to answer some towards the end of the stream if we have time. But there's been a lot of talk about whether we could be heading for a super cycle for Bitcoin, especially because the game around it has changed so much, what with the introduction of spot ETFs and now talk about the possibility of a strategic reserve. Is the idea of a Bitcoin super cycle, is that just us getting excited because we're at the beginning of another great big bull run, or is it something that we should consider as possible? Ben, do you want to start with this one?
Am I muted?
Now I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
I mean, like, I think I'll probably just stick with what Rob was saying. If it's not broke, don't fix it, right? I mean, the 4-year cycle seems to have been a thing for a while now. And my guess is that, if you go back to the last 3 cycles, all of them, the bear market started sometime in the post-halving year, right? I mean, we had one start in November of 2013, we had one start in December of 2017, and we had one start in November of 2021. So you'll probably see something similar happen. But I'm sure there's going to be reasons to believe it could be different, but there always are reasons, right? There's always a reason to believe it'll be different. I'm not going to say it's impossible, right? I mean, there's obviously, the markets can change and adjust, and they don't always have to repeat themselves. But it would be a, and as if you're into Bitcoin too, I mean, it doesn't mean you always have to just sell your Bitcoin in fear of it. I mean, if you believe in it long term, even the people who wrote it down in 2022 are still doing just fine today. So yeah, I would probably defer to what we typically see, where at some point in 2025 the market gets just a little too euphoric, and then we start to see things go the other way. But there still could be plenty of time between now and then.
Yeah, I'll piggyback real quick and we'll get to the Q&A. But I'll just say that if you take a look historically speaking, after every presidential election, the day of, the price has never gone below that. So if you take a look at when Donald J. Trump won this last election, I think it was around 69,000, 70,000, right? Now we're at 103, whatever it is. And then before that, Biden, I think it was like 11, 12,000. Before that, it was Trump, and it was like, this was in 2000, gosh, that's 2016, about $700. Then before that, it was Obama, which is what, $10. But as it hits those levels, it just keeps going up and never regresses. So right now, we're up pretty damn big. I mean, quite honestly, I I think we're ahead of the game right now. If we take a look at, like Ben would, and on his website, the ROI after the bottoms, we're like in between cycle 3 and cycle 4. We're like right in the middle of that, which means we're doing better than the last one, but not as good as, say, like the 2017 big huge run up. So like for all these things, is there going to be a super cycle? I don't know. But even if you held throughout, like, let's say Bitcoin goes to 200K and it crashes to 120, would anybody be upset? I mean, that much? I mean, the ones right here, I think the newbies will, but for us, the ones that I really concern myself with, the OGs, I think we're going to be just fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, as you say, kind of like, you know, if we do, we can win either way. I guess we can have this both ways. If we take profits along the way, if we don't get too exuberant, then we can still benefit from a super cycle. I mean, like, well, this kind of ties into the last thing I wanted to ask you guys before we take it to comments and things like that. Like, what does your exit strategy look like? Maybe this is a very premature question to ask, but I think it's pertinent because you know, we've always stressed the importance of taking profits, and I know, Rob, you've been as more vocal about that than anyone, and it's some of the best advice that you can give everyone. No one ever went broke taking profits. But what does that look like to you guys? And what will you do? Will you rotate into stables? Will you rotate back into Bitcoin? How does it look? And do you have are you looking at particular price targets? Are you looking at a particular time when you think the market may be going to top? Ben, what does it look like for you, your exit strategy at this stage?
I mean, I just stick to the risk levels. It's one of those things where I sort of like an acknowledgement or an admission that we can't possibly know what's going to happen, right? Or you know, it's sort of an admission that, like, you know, no one can predict exactly when things are going to happen and exactly how high things will go. So, I mean, here's the risk metric. You can throw it up. So I basically stick to this, and I just say, when as it goes up, you sort of sell into it. You can kind of see it a little bit better this way. But this is what I use. There's other indicators as well that I think are, you know, can be useful. Some of them are things like the pi cycle top indicator was useful last cycle. I do wonder if it's gonna, you know, you can see a lot on a lot of the metrics, like there's like diminishing peaks. Right. So I wonder if you, like, you know, you connect the dots on those peaks to sort of project out where the next top will be. That's sort of the pi cycle top one. You could also do something similar with the what was it? It was the I just did the terminal price, right? If you look at the terminal price and you take the price over that metric, you can kind of see also sort of like diminishing peaks there. So it could be that you look for that, you know, you look to that for some level of guidance. But I would say the best thing that I would do is just to stick to the risk level. And if the risk level is screaming again, like if it's in the 0.8 to 9, you know, the 0.8 to 0.9 risk band or something, then it's probably time to really start locking in, you know, profits and looking to potentially buy back in later. But again, at the end of the day, I think it always makes sense to hold some, right, regardless of the models, because even the models, even out of all the models I use, I think we all have to admit that, like, they're all wrong, right? All models are wrong. Some are useful, and you kind of have to just remember that there's not going to be a single model that's going to tell you what's going to happen in the market. But, you know, you can maybe use them to try to give you some edge, but not to take any single model as like, oh, this has to play out, because we've seen so many times where people put too much faith in one model and then something completely different ends up happening.
Yeah. And I guess in crypto, we're lucky in that we have access to so much data. You know, there are so many ways that we can look at this, so many metrics that we can look at, especially if you use a website called Into the Cryptoverse, I should add. But there is so much information out there, and it's about taking the time, I think, to look through it and develop your thesis from there. Because, yeah, you're right, Ben, you know, we're relying on one particular model, as you say, it will be wrong more often than it's right. Rob, what does an exit strategy, what does profit taking look like to you?
It looks like it makes me nervous. And it's one of those things that, like, I know everybody who's watching this, you guys are masters of buying dips and dollar cost averaging and even lump summing and maybe even value cost averaging. But I think the thing that'll get you, which gets everybody, is taking profits, because it's hard to give up those bags that you've held for 2-3 years. Because, like, again, if I did a 2x, why couldn't I do a 5x? If I did a 5x, why couldn't I do a 20x? And so on and so forth. So that's why I'm always harping on it. And so here was a story I just got from this morning. It was from Uzi Metz, and he's a subscriber. And he said, "Hey, I just want to say thanks. I took some profits, and I was finally able to pay off this huge debt that I had, which had a very high interest rate on my credit card. And I was actually able to buy a car so I get to work finally." And I'm like, that's great. That's exactly what it is. Like Bitcoin, like people think that altcoins and Bitcoin is going to make you fulfilled. It's not. It's the time that you save, and it's the stress that you reduce, and it's the things that you can do and the experiences that you have. That's the big thing. And I think if we don't lose sight of that, we'll be okay. So for me, I'm always harping on this like guy you said, take profits. And we went broke taking profits. And let me show you something. If you do anything, is this it? If you do anything, just listen to Ben about that the time and wristbands. And then if you do that, it makes it a lot easier. And then also if you do, like, there's another piece, and I think I need to talk about this more. This is these exit strategies. And it makes things like, how we layer in dollar cost averaging? People always ask me, well, Rob, you say you're going to step down from your channel once you sell. Yes, but I'm going to layer in and layer out. And if you want like some kind of like guide, just a down and dirty one that'll make it easy for you, just do this. Essentially what you're doing is you're saying, look, I got a coin that's Bitcoin or AVAX or whatever this other, what the hell is that? Oh, Tezos. And you can put that in, use projected or use the current price. You think it's going to go to 200,000. And right here, selling at the risk bands, the beginning, the middle, top. And it'll just tell you like, hey, if you're an aggressive person, maybe you start to, take profits as these risk bands hit in 0.75, you take out this. And, you didn't hit the very pico top, but you got 153,000. That's pretty good. And it just kind of gives you a way to like layer yourself out. And here's the risk bands over here, what Ben was talking about. So there's so many things to talk about this, but this is only an hour show. And that's why you should watch the other two guys, and they'll kind of help you break that down. But the big thing is nobody ever went broke taking profits. And it's about the things that you don't have to do, because you have the freedom to do the things you want to do. Yeah.
And that dude who you mentioned, Rob, who wrote into you and cleared that debt and got himself a car, like that's what winning looks like. Yeah. And that's it. It doesn't have to be a Lambo and a castle made of gold or whatever. It's about making your life better, because if you're able to clear yourself of debt, like that is so underrated. I'm sure I've banged on about this before, but like, even if you just clear your debts using taking profits from crypto, that is a bigger win than most people would give themselves credit for, I think.
Hey, Guy and Ben, let me ask you guys a question, because I know, Guy, you're in Dubai. Well, not right now, I don't think, but you're back home. Mm. But and then Ben as well. Have you ever met like multi-millionaires, like 100 millionaires, maybe even a billionaire? And have you met these guys, and do you ever get a sense that they're just miserable people? Like, I've met a bunch of them here in Puerto Rico, and like they're like multi-millionaires. They just seem like they're miserable. And I just wonder, like, I think to myself, I mean, it's great to have money, don't get me wrong, but once you can pay your bills, it's kind of everything else is after that. Like this, Phil, I quit my job in May. That's the big win right there, I think. But yeah. Do you meet these guys and or are you like, no, they're pretty damn happy in their Lambos?
I've certainly never met anyone who has a Lambo who seems all that happy. I think I see a lot of Lambo comments, a lot of Lambo comments coming up. And it's just like, if you want one piece of advice from what I've seen, everyone who has a Lambo is miserable, because I think they think it will make them complete, and then they buy it and they realize it just makes them look like a dick. So, I think that's something to bear in mind. Like, so I saw someone had a comment about them wanting to buy like a Honda or something like that. It's like, yeah, that's that's what to do. Don't just flush it all on some stupid car, because it doesn't. Yeah, you're right. It doesn't make them happy. Out in Dubai, I've met quite a few people, and really, I think the really wealthy ones, you can barely even tell. They just look like regular people, and I think that's what I kind of think that's what happiness in a way looks like. It's about someone who's got the wealth to, to improve their lives in the way that they wanted to improve it. But then it doesn't define them. They don't feel any need to drive an expensive car or to wear or to wear really sort of flashy clothes or anything like that, or parade around, flaunting it. They're comfortable in their own skin. And if wealth buys you anything, it buys you, I think, a sense of completeness, a sense of being comfortable with who you are and accepting that. And I think the really, the guys who don't look anything, who you never think, they're often the wealthiest of all.
As Ben sits there with his cardboard desk and says, "Yeah, exactly."
Yeah, absolutely right.
No, I think you guys are right. I mean, if you do get to the point, someone asked me the other day, they're like, well, I made life-changing money, what should they do? If it's truly life-changing, then you won't regret, at least banking some of it and then living to fight another day, no matter what happens, right? That's the great thing about crypto, is you can use it sort of pay off your liabilities, your debt. Obviously, if you're at high interest rates, I mean, I'm not saying you should go pay off like a 2.5% mortgage or something, but yeah, and I mean, it's the great thing, and it sort of frees up more capital for, say, like the next cycle. So yeah, I mean, I also think crypto is, like I said this before, like, it's a personal journey. What's right for you is not going to be what's right for someone else. So I would say, if you hit your goals, if you hit your targets, don't just keep moving the goalpost, right? That's how people end up regretting things. They hit their target and they just move the goalpost enough times, and then eventually they then go back down. So yeah, I would say stick with, come up with a plan, stick to it, and just try to focus on the plan that you laid out.
Yeah, sage advice. Sage advice.
It's really sage advice. The difficult part is following it. So that's something that everyone should focus on this cycle. Take this advice to heart. Think about what it means for you, and then think about what it means to actually follow it, because your will be tested over the coming months. And it's kind of, it's a good situation to be in a lot of ways. But I think this is one of the reasons why people find bull markets more stressful than bear markets, because suddenly the coin is completely flipped, so to speak, and you're suddenly dealing with a whole new set of problems, and your brain is telling you that it shouldn't be a problem, because it's like, I've made money, this is great, this is what I wanted. But we humans are kind of funny like that. I think we sort of so many of us, I think, are just looking for the next sort of problem to skip over to or to skip onto, rather than thinking as, actually, this is what I wanted. This was the problem I was trying to solve. It's in front of me now. I just need to let myself solve it, rather than, as you say, Ben, like, keep pushing it out. It's like, oh, I don't feel fulfilled now that this problem is solved. I need a bigger problem. It's like, no, you don't need a bigger problem. You've solved it.
I need a bigger problem.
Enjoy it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Just before we head off, there are a few comments that I wanted to flag up from people. Some people have had some questions there. Ben, I'm guessing this is aimed mostly at you, but Rob, feel free to opine. Harris says, "Are you scared of tomorrow's job data?" Are you ever scared of job data, Ben? You don't strike me as someone who gets scared by job data, but yeah, any thoughts on tomorrow's job data?
I mean, initial claims are still low, right? I think that's kind of what you use to get some idea. So initial claims are low. I don't think it's going to be super concerning until initial claims are over 300K, right? I think I don't know what they're at now exactly, but I think they're like 213, 217. They might have gone up slightly above 220, but they're still relatively low. So there's just been a lot of excess that has been slowly sort of going away. But I would keep an eye on it. My guess is that, you know, if it comes in at 441, then it's probably going to be a good thing. Especially a little bit later on in December, we might still kind of hang out around 100K for a little bit. You know, obviously, if it shoots up to 4.3 or something, then you might see the markets pull back some. But it kind of goes back to the idea we've talked about it on here before of, like, you know, climbing the wall of worry, right? There's always something to worry about, right? And that's why I think just sort of sticking to something a bit more quantitative, like risk levels or something, right? It could be like a pi cycle top or a terminal price indicator, whatever it is. I think sticking to stuff like that is a little bit more useful, because then you're not constantly worried about the next thing, right? You're just sort of focusing on, what does the indicator tell you? You know, is that the cycle top or is it not? And if it's not, then it's a little bit easier to sort of continue on. So there's always something to worry about, and that's why they call it climbing the wall of worry.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if some negative report comes out, some positive thing will come out, and it'll just be a thing until all the whales figure out and say, well, we're just going to dump it or do whatever they want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. We live so day to day in this game, isn't it? It's just like there's always something ahead. It's like, oh, there's a Fed meeting soon. Are they going to cut another 25? What next? I need something more to worry about. William Fisher is asking, after this run, I still feel like we'll see BTC under 100K again, especially if we get a recession and not crazy money printing. It feels very premature to be talking about BTC under 100K again, because it could well be under 100K by this time tomorrow. But I mean, I guess this is kind of the question of, like, do we think that 100K could become, you know, a real sort of zone of support? I mean, could we leave those sub 100K days behind fairly soon? Is that possible?
I guess it could be. We'll have to take a look at all the leverage longs and shorts and see just who's going to get flushed out, and then kind of go from there. I don't know, but William, can you at least just let us have this day as a celebration? Let's not worry about that too much.
Yeah. Again, William, enjoy it while it lasts. You know, it'll all look different tomorrow, but yeah, days like this, you've really got to enjoy them to the full. Now, 38 Wheels makes a good point, and a couple of others in the comments made this point as well, and it's one I've seen a few times before, and I think it's always worth talking about it. It's funny how people rubbish fiat, but they take profits and convert them to stablecoin to hold. Lol. Which is absolutely fair enough. Like, I think that's a really good point. And that's exactly what I'm planning to do. But yeah, like, if I think the dollar's such a load of rubbish, which I do, like all fiat currencies, I should say, the dollar's just, you know, the best of a very bad bunch. But yeah, is this not just rank hypocrisy on our part? We go back into a dollar token. What should we be doing long term? Ben, do you want to take this one?
Well, I mean, it depends on what your unit of account is, right? I mean, this is why we spent so much time talking about Bitcoin dominance. If your unit of account is Bitcoin, then your profits are going just back to Bitcoin, right? If your unit of account is US dollars, then your profit taking goes back to US dollars. So, I mean, it depends on how you think about your portfolio. I mean, if, you know, historically in midterm years, Bitcoin goes down. In 2014, 2018, and 2022, if you're okay, you know, sort of ignoring that and just keeping your unit of account as Bitcoin, then there's nothing wrong with just, you know, taking your altcoin profits, you know, after alt season and just essentially putting it back in Bitcoin and just saying, well, to hell with where Bitcoin USD goes. I don't care. It'll just be, you know, Bitcoin will be my unit of account. So I think, and that's the thing where I feel like what really happens is in bull markets, this always happens, right? In bull markets, after Bitcoin dominance goes up for 3 years, everyone's like, yeah, like, you know, I'm a Bitcoin maxi and my unit of account is Bitcoin. And then they think like that. And then when they watch Bitcoin drop at some point, you know, 50% or something, and then spooks them, and then no longer, and they decide no longer they want it to be their unit of account. Now they want the US dollar to be their unit of account. But a lot of times they only want the US dollar to be their unit of account after Bitcoin drops against the US dollar, right? So it's one of those things where, yeah, like if there is some hypocrisy associated with it, but you also have to remember that sometimes if people say they're taking profits, it could mean they're just converting back to Bitcoin, you know? And that was, you know, the thing with some of these recent rallies by alts. You know, if you were looking at their Bitcoin pairs and then expecting Bitcoin was going to break above 100K, you could take profits from the altcoin, but that doesn't mean you have to put it in US dollars. You could have just put it back in Bitcoin to ride the next Bitcoin rally. So it all depends on what your unit of account is.
Yeah, and I think, and just to piggyback, that's what like I see a difference between like people who have no debt and have no worries and really no problems. They have money in the bank, as they just look at Bitcoin's like take the biggest example, Michael Saylor. They're like, well, it went down 40%, whatever, I don't care. I'll buy some, or I'll buy some at the top. I really don't care. Once you can get to that point where you don't have that debt, you're pretty much just like, I'll just put it into assets, and that's where all essentially the money is made. So that's how I see it. But that there's this one thing, like when you were like Ben, we were talking about altcoin season. There's this. Did we show this yet? This Altcoin Season Index?
I tweeted it the other day.
Like it makes things just brain dead easy for me. So, you know, once we go to this, essentially once Bitcoin is, what is the term? 90-day return of investment. Once you have 75% or more of altcoins, you're in altcoin season. So maybe it's time to take some profits. We shot up way above that now. But like, if you would have taken profits in May 2020, or no, excuse me, bought in May of 2023, when this altcoin season was down here, you'd be doing pretty damn good right now, especially all the different dino coins. I mean, how much would you be up from 2023 to now? So it's just something, it's just one more thing to add to your list of, if you're trying to, I mean, we're all trying to time the market in some way, just to take a look at that and go, okay, maybe this is the time to take those profits and then rotate them back into Bitcoin. Like my Roth IRA, I've got 4 meme coins in there, and they're outperforming gold and silver and Toncoin and SWI. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to sell all those and roll them right into Bitcoin. And I call that taking profits, because I think Bitcoin will be here in 20 years. I don't know about Pepe.
Yeah. Yes. Who knows? Yeah. But it's a good point, isn't it? You know, we talk a lot about rotating out into stables, but as Ben and Rob have said, you know, eventually, plan is for it to find its way into Bitcoin. And the people who have figured that out long term and have been doing it already, you know, the Michael Saylors of this world, are the clear winners already. So yeah, good answer. Thank you, guys. All good stuff to bear in mind. Just a few more comments before we close out the stream. It was a Honda Odyssey, not a Lambo, that this person was after. I don't know what a Honda Odyssey looks like, but it sounds, I haven't come across a Honda Odyssey before, but it sounds good. Maybe that should be the car of this cycle.
Yeah.
It sounds like a good one. I love this comment from Oleg. We survived FTX, Luna, UST collapse, Celsius, BlockFi, Voyager implosion, Operation Choke Point, Binance fired USD, all of it, and now we're back here to witness 100K BTC. Very true. It's been a tough few years. That's why we're allowed to enjoy it now. Some of the big talk in the chat recently over the stream has been this thing of your pool. So in case you missed it, you can actually see Rob jumping into his pool over on Twitter. So I must say I haven't actually watched it yet. So I'm going to save that. Is Rob going to add it to the stream? Add it to the stream here.
Let me turn this off. So, okay, confession time. This is not a green screen, but today it's a green screen because I am not in Texas. And actually, I was thinking about jumping into this pool here, but there's no power right now and the generator's on. So all you would hear is brr, 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 brr. So I just did it like this.
So Rob, what it sounds like you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you probably jumped into the pool before 100K, recorded it, and then just posted it after it happened.
First of all, that is a ridiculous statement.
I know that's not what you're suggesting, right?
And it is fake news. And what this was is I took a private jet and I used the profits that I got from Dog with Hat, and I took that and I went all the way to Texas, jumped in, did this, Also shaved my beard today, and now I'm here. So yeah, you're welcome, everybody. You're welcome. I love everybody, and I'm glad I could do this for you, and you can see me jump into the pool.
Don't try and pull one over, Mr. Ben Cowan. Nothing gets past him. Nothing gets past him. The other comment is, I mean, I was just thinking, this guy, Ben, did you all know Rob was so buff? No, I did not. I did not. This is news to me as well.
I think we talked about it before, because we talked when I think someone asked like who would how they how they have those like fights and stuff in the crypto space, like they'll pair up influencers. And we were talking about if we had to send one of us three, who would we send? We were like, Rob. I mean,
That's true.
And he was, Rob, you were in the army, right?
Yeah, Rob's got bad knees. So if someone does a pretty good leg kick, I'm pretty much done. But I'll give it a roll. Sure, why not? Yeah, I was in the army for 8 years. Combat medic, good times, good times. But, you know, like, I like going back to this thing about, you know, people say like, how's he so in shape? One of the things is I don't have much stress. That's the big thing. So like when we talk about taking profits, it helps to reduce stress when you do that. So try to do that.
Yeah. It's wise words, isn't it? Try and keep in shape. That's something I started doing a lot more of when I moved out to Dubai, and it's honestly been one of the best things I've done. Trying to exercise every day. It's good for the body. It's good for the mind. And yeah, if you're going to be in this business, you need your mind to be in shape. You need everything to be in shape, because it will take it out of you otherwise. Gents, I think that's about it for today. Thank you so much for all those wise words. It's great to see you again after a gap of a couple of weeks. And congratulations to you guys, and congratulations to everyone watching on 100K BTC. I get the feeling this may only be the start. We've got some very, very interesting weeks and months ahead of us. So please do stick with us, keep watching, keep commenting, keep asking questions, and stay crypto. And I'll leave you with a bit of not financial advice from Matthew Miller. Buy farmland and a Lambo tractor. There we are. So many crypto bros just want to go off grid and get back to the land. I love it. Anyhow, we will be back next week on
Ben,
either Rob or Ben's channel. On Ben's channel, of course. I've forgotten. It's been too long. So we will see you all then. Thank you all very much for watching. Ben, Rob, thank you. See you soon.
Thanks all.
Okay.
I woke up with what's going out of my head. I'm so bored. Guy is in a bunker. Are you sure it's not the janitor's room? Guy, didn't it put you in timeout? Get ready for liftoff. Bitcoin is the winner. Great video, guys. Great stuff, team. BTC is going to